I forgot to put, we can just talk about what's up, Neil?
What's up? Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome to podcast. This is actually the last, might have said this last time, but this is for real the last episode of the season, with the exception of the Q&A episode.
So it's the second to last.
Second to last, but last scripted episode.
First, last, second to last, first.
Yes.
From first to last.
Nice. Shout out Sonny Moore. What up, dude? Happy Wednesday. We're recording at a normal time today.
Yep. It's good to be here. I think I found out that if we want to record at our normal time, we have to start 30 minutes earlier, and then we will record at our normal time.
Yes. We did just talk for like 30 minutes before recording. That's my bad, though. Just get carried away.
No, it's perfect.
Okay.
I feel fully ready to talk.
Yeah, it's hard to go from like doing something to then doing another thing without having a period in between where you do something to get you ready for the other thing.
The talking was like the ginger between the two pieces of sushi.
Okay.
So you can reset your palate.
This is really important you brought this up because my girlfriend and I had sushi yesterday, poke bowls today, and she eats her ginger with the sushi. That's weird, right?
You know, we all like different things, but I mean, people in America put wasabi in their soy sauce, and in Japan, they will cut off one of your fingers if you do that.
Well, in Japan, they load it up underneath the fish.
Yeah, you don't even need to do it. It just comes that way because they're just awesome.
I will say, Neil, that is one of the coolest experiences we have shared.
That was really cool. I always tell people about that, and they never will understand, but you actually know firsthand how awesome that was.
Yeah, we went to like this sushi place in Japan that was just this one guy. He only sits about maybe 10 people a day twice. I think he does 2 sittings, an early and a late. So maybe like 4 in the afternoon and then like 7 in the afternoon for dinner. And you go and he works on the rice and the fish from the market all day. And it's like just his house, it seems like, or his apartment.
Well, it was like a Michelin star restaurant.
But it was just this guy.
Yeah. I mean, it was incredible. It was like some of the most incredible, simple, amazing flavors like that just were so well thought out. It was like he knew what he was doing or something. I don't know. He's crazy. It was like he was a chef or something. I don't know. He just blew my mind. Like there was like these things where he'd be like, all right, dip this in the vinegar, but do not put this one in the vinegar or whatever, you know?
Yeah, there's a certain way for everything.
You're like, am I going to...
You don't want to offend him. You want to do it right. And he would make the sushi and hand it to you and then watch you eat it every time.
Every person, like he'd be like, all right, Adam, here's yours. And you're like, thank you. He's like, oh.
Yeah, just waiting.
Eat it now. Okay, now Neil, here's yours. Eat it now. Okay, Jeremy.
I will remember the one, well, there's multiple things that were weird to me in other countries. There always are. But because he was in like this apartment complex, do you remember like next door to us was like some weird party with some older men? And we were like, we don't know what we entered here, but it is sketchy.
I know exactly what it was, but it's not something we could talk about here.
Oh, okay. Well,
on this family show.
Well, me being ignorant, is that the right word? Or oblivious, or I just don't understand things that happen like that. So I was like, this is weird.
It was older gentlemen, the business mind, and they were women in scantily clad clothes with club music happening, taking each of the gentlemen to another room that we couldn't see. So we're just like, okay.
Must have been karaoke.
I don't know if this is the correct area. We're supposed to go to dinner in this Michelin star restaurant. And then the lady comes out and she's like, right this way.
You go to the right instead of the left. Like, okay.
Or like, you're in Japan, you can't read anything. I mean, I can't. I'm like, I have no fucking idea what's being said here. I'm like, sushi, strip club, I don't know, whatever. Sure, left, right. The lady's like, come this way. I'm like, okay, we're going to go that way.
Google Translate, if you ever tour, is the best thing ever. You just hold the camera up and it translates it in real time, which blew my mind.
We were a little bit too early for that, I feel like. Like, we were like right on the cusp of it existing and it just wasn't quite there yet.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's much better now.
Okay. Well, moving on. Today's what's up?
My second favorite part of the podcast.
Patreon?
Yes. I love getting to say their names.
Do we intro what we're talking about first and then say Patreon?
Patreon, then intro. Colin.
All right, so... All right, this week we've got 7 new patrons on our Patreon. Thank you guys for signing up and supporting us. We appreciate it deeply.
Adam, I'll give you $50 if you can guess the first name on the list.
Colin.
Yes.
Wait, what?
You cheated though, because you probably looked at I already said it. It's fine. Eva.
Dean.
Steve. Classic.
Eleonora.
Our good friend Jordan.
And then Darian. Is that our friend Jordan?
I don't know. Maybe. Probably. Maybe.
It's cool. Our friends sign up for Patreon and it makes me really happy.
If it wasn't Jordan, then you guys have a really cool name. It's like our friends.
And just a quick reminder, if you're new to our Patreon or want to hop on there, next week's Q&A episode is going to be all questions from our Discord that you can access through our Patreon. So if you want to jump in on that, feel free to. It's not too late. Sign up, submit your questions, and we will use them for next week's episode. Unless it's already Wednesday and you're listening to this late, then you might be too late.
There's a bunch of lessons here. Don't be late.
Yeah.
Second lesson, ask questions if you want to know the answer. Third lesson, here we go. Just kidding. There's no third lesson.
Okay, so now that you kind of know that hopefully if you've gotten to this point, you've listened to episodes 1 through 8, now you're on 9, and you kind of know what goes on during the day on tour, but we're going to focus on how everything happens and fill it in with some few little tips, tricks, level ups of things that you want to kind of understand before you go on tour, like how to use the shower and stuff. But our basic overview is we are going to cover
Living together.
working together,
making mistakes,
and then overall just learning and improving. And we just want to talk to you about what it kind of feels like to tour, what it feels like to work together, what it feels like to live in the same space. And I don't know, it's a hard thing to describe, but we're going to try to get as close as we can.
Just existing. And that's like something that most people don't have to think about. It just happens. But when you're touring with a large group of people, sometimes 30, 40 people, they're all different types of personalities and everyone does things a little bit different, but we're going to help you navigate that.
Yeah, and you're with them for a long time every day. I would say, I don't know, how long do you think a work day is usually on tour?
As long as you're awake. The moment that you wake up until you go to sleep, probably like anywhere from 16 to 20 hours.
Sometimes more.
Yeah, sometimes more. And it's all work, and we've kind of gone over that, like travel, work. When you get to the venue and you're doing things, work. When you're on an off day, you're probably doing laundry, probably taking care of personal things. It's also work.
And to sum it all up, we call this don't be a dick.
Pretty self-explanatory, just don't do it. Don't be a dick. Don't shit on the bus. It's all there.
Yeah, tour is full of unique, talented people. Everyone comes from different backgrounds, learn their skills differently, and there really isn't a rule book to everything. So everybody kind of learned their skills differently and has a different understanding of what it means to get their job done during the day.
It's why it's so important to find a crew that you fit into. It's why it's so important to make sure you are a person other people want to be around. You have to be able to go with the flow. You have to be able to work together. It's all about teamwork, really.
Yeah, teamwork, live together, work together, sleep together. You literally live with these people all day, every day. I don't know. For me, it's always easier when I travel with an artist and I'm actually I travel as a photographer. So it's not this way for every position on a crew, but for me, it's always easiest when I'm friends with the artist. Like with your band, it's the easiest thing ever because I just get to hang out and take pictures while we hang out. And
it's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's fun. And it's probably easier for you guys too, if you're friends with the photographer, I would imagine.
Yeah, I can't imagine having someone I wouldn't want to be around, especially thinking about them taking pictures of me. I'm like, this person doesn't really like me. They're probably going to take an ugly picture of me on purpose. This isn't fun. And then you get self-conscious and you're like, whatever. But it's just good to be around friends, like you said, and ADTR is kind of a perfect example of that because we are different. I'm assuming than most people.
Yeah.
There's a couple bands that are very similar to us. I would say Pierce the Veil, very similar to us. Bands in our genre, it's kind of...
Bands who grew up with their crew, honestly. Who started from a really, not low level, but a beginner level with their crew.
And they still have them around.
Yeah.
They're friends, we hang out with our crew members on days off. I work very closely with my guitar tech. He is working at my restaurant right now, actually, while I'm here filming this podcast. He is working at the restaurant. And then when we get done closing tonight, we're going to go over to our practice space / studio and then work on guitars together. And it's just something we like doing. It's fun, it is work, but at the same time, we enjoy it. So we do it all the time. It's fun.
And isn't he from food industry? He's probably really good at working at the restaurant. All right, we sidetracked a tiny bit. Okay.
Organization. It's get back on fucking topic.
While moving through all these things, living, working, sleeping together, teamwork, all that jazz, organization is key on every level. And Neil, I know you spoke about this before, but there's an order and a reason behind everything on tour. There's a reason it happens in the order it happens, and there's a schedule to everything. So you need to make sure that on your personal level, whether it be your own belongings, your work belongings, work tools, everything needs to be very organized. Not only so you appear like you have your shit together, but so that you do have your shit together.
Literally. I mean, it's you're not going to go 15 minutes before doors and start folding laundry in the bus. You got there's a rhyme and a reason for everything. It's you take that time to get ready to play the show. You do your laundry on days off. It's been done for many years before me. It's been done for many years before Adam. We didn't make this up. This is the best way. It's kind of everything is shifted and kind of fallen into place. And this is just how it works best.
Yeah. There's been a lot of trial and error, a lot of people who've embarrassed themselves, messed up, and made all the mistakes so you don't have to. So we're trying to convey all those lessons to you. I guess I would say, while you're on tour, we're not going to cover this specifically because we're going to assume you know how to be a good person to at least a level where you can live with other people, but all your obvious rules of life apply, right? Like when you're on tour, all the normal stuff and then plus some.
Yeah, I mean, like one of the first things that kind of comes to my mind is you have to clean up after yourself. It sounds kind of obvious, but a lot of times people don't really think about it. You know, if they live on their own, or if they live with their parents, or they live a frat house, or whatever, they're coming out of college or whatever they're doing, you got to clean up after yourself, but people don't really think about that. It's super important.
Yeah, you got to do all those normal life things because people will notice. So first off, let's talk about living together. Yo, Neil, I have a rule that I like to apply. I don't know if I've told you this rule, but you probably know it. Once I say it, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But I always have a rule that when I'm trying to decide if I can do something or not do it on tour, but I haven't been explicitly told yes or no, I just think about, well, what if everybody did it? And that's a good way to figure it out for myself.
I think that's brilliant. Yeah. It's like, should I just run around in my underwear? It's like, I mean, that'd be pretty weird if everyone did it. So I guess I probably won't. I mean, I do, but
I was just thinking, I was like, well, maybe that rule doesn't work for you in that specific situation.
I mean, everyone on our bus does. I guess that's not a good one. But if you're on like a crew bus and there's like, you're sharing a shared space with like men and women. Yeah. I mean, just, you know, maybe you should put on some shorts.
My example is like, okay, on the bus, there's a table. I could put my computer on it and get my work done. But when I'm done with my work, I can't leave my computer on that table because what if everybody left their computer on that table? Then there would be no table. So that's kind of like an example. I don't know. Think of another one that's like, well, what if everybody did it?
Come in from playing a show and I just immediately take all of my clothes off right in the front lounge and leave them there.
Yeah.
My shoes and everything. Then your bus would be immediately a mess because if everyone that just came off the stage came into the front lounge, all 5 of us, plus our tour manager, plus Adam, just took off their clothes right in the front lounge. Like there would just be clothes everywhere and they just left them there. People's clothes would get mixed up and it just wouldn't work. I mean, it's kind of the same thing you said, but just worse.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of what I do. Just say what you say, just not as good.
Okay, well, now that we've established that rule that can help you figure out, maybe make some judgment calls in some situations that you don't know about. Okay, so let's talk about some of the rules that exist on a bus. And I know we went over this briefly, but we're not going to go over a van this time because it's pretty much the same rules as a bus. Just honestly, even more important because it's a smaller space. And these rules, most people will be touring on a bus for the majority of their careers. That's the most normal way to travel. Yeah, I don't know. You want to start us off here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's kind of a good rule of thumb to leave something nicer than when you found it, you know? Like if you were going to take the last cup of coffee, put another pot of coffee on, you know? Like if you're kind of like in the fridge in the pantry, you're messing around, you take the last something, grab it, throw it away. Don't leave the trash in there. You piss all over the toilet seat, obviously wipe it up. If you're a woman, whatever happens, I don't know. Don't do that. Don't pee on the toilet seat, you know? And same with the back lounge, you know, like that's a shared space. Treat everything that is a shared space how you would want your space to be treated, you know? Like don't leave things behind. Don't think about somebody else cleaning up after you. Just do it for yourself. Make that effort.
It's like, don't leave stuff out, you know? Don't leave it around.
Yeah.
If you aren't using it, probably shouldn't be there. I think next part is actually a term for the glossary. Don't leave the bus bays open.
Yeah.
What's a bus bay? Hit them with the bus bay, baby.
The area underneath of a tour bus where you store all of the things that you're not going to use on a regular basis in the bus. So like golf clubs, suitcases with all of your clothes.
Under the bus.
Yeah, under the bus.
I know what else. Scooters you purchased on tour from a member of an old band.
Dirt bikes. Shove them under there.
Under the bus.
If they fit, put them under there, you know?
Trying to think of other things that we've stored under the bus.
Honda S2000.
What is that?
It's a car. But the only reason I said that is because my stepdad drove for a golfer and he had like a really expensive bus. He was able to put a car under there.
Under the bus?
Yeah, it's pretty fucking sick. You'll never have a bus with a car under it. Just don't even worry about that right now. But if you do, like maybe you're like a caddy for a golfer or something, you can put your car under there.
Yes. Always lock the bus. You want to tell them how to lock the bus?
Oh, yeah. Do you got just, it's the same as like any car with like a keypad on it. I know most cars don't have that now, but if you press the last 2 digits of the keypad, so it's like the keypad's usually like 1, 2 is on the same button.
2, 3, 4.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 0. You'd press the 0 and the 9 and the 7 and 8 button at the same time. Locks the bus simultaneously.
I know that or wait, usually we lock the bus all the time, but I know like we'll leave it unlocked maybe if everybody's on the bus, maybe like 10 of us in the front lounge hanging. We've definitely had times where people have just walked on the bus that we didn't know.
Oh, yeah.
What are you doing?
I can remember people in like San Francisco, we were playing the Warfield, and they're basically zombies. Poor people, had some less than fortunate situations happen to them. They're trying to get on the bus. They don't care. They're like, what's up? Hey guys, oh shit, there's a lot of you guys on here. I'm in the wrong spot. I'm going to get off of here. But imagine if no one was on the bus, they could have gone on there and taken whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
Gone to the pawn shop, there you go.
All right. Another rule of the bus. Don't use the water on the bus to brush your teeth. I do, but you're not supposed to, but I definitely do.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, it's water that's stored in a tank was cleaned with like bleach and chemicals, and then at one time, and that probably hasn't been done in years, and they just keep filling it up with water, and it's water from truck stops and shit. You wouldn't go to a spigot at a truck stop and just put your mouth on it, probably.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't.
I don't think.
Definitely not.
Yeah, don't store more than 1 or 2 things in the fridge. I think that's a pretty good rule.
Fridge is pretty small. You just put the stuff in there that needs to stay cold. If you have drinks, there's actually these little drink holders on the bus that are filled with ice daily. They like slide open from the top and they're right next to the couches, and you just...
Coolers.
Yeah, coolers. Oh, I messed up that term. They keep stuff cool.
Keeps stuff cool. If you are going to put something in the fridge, you must write your name on it. That is a cardinal rule of touring, especially if you don't want someone else to eat it. Because if something is in the fridge and it doesn't have anyone's name on it, it's free game, and you cannot be mad if they eat it. That's just the truth.
I just write not yours on it.
If it says anything, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't... You could also avoid this by not being a jackass and not eating something that you didn't put in the fucking fridge. But sometimes you get bus stock, and sometimes there's like stuff in there that's for everybody on the bus, like...
Bus stock. That's a term.
Oh, yeah, bus stock. Bus stock is like when you write what you want on a list, and then the runner from the venue gets it for your bus, and it's then your stock for your bus.
The list is called your bus rider.
Yep.
There's so many terms in such a small description.
I was talking to Chris Camerata today. He's the drummer for Dashboard Confessional. He came and eat at the restaurant, and he was telling me how much of a fan he was of the podcast.
Really?
Yeah, and I was like talking to him about terminology, and his friend is like standing there, and I was like, yeah, we kind of got to go and explain everything, like even down to like things that are just pretty standard for you and I to just talk about. His friend's like, I have no fucking idea what half the words you just said were. I was like, like whenever you get your writer and like the tour manager like wants to make sure that it goes on the crew bus, but they don't want to put half the bus stock in the band bus. He's like, I don't know what you just said.
Yeah, it's like another language, but you forget it's another language because it's one of the languages you speak quite often.
It's all words you probably know the definition for, but when you use them in a certain orientation, they confuse the shit out of people.
They're very, very situational. No, what's the term for it? Situational? No, context. The context matters.
Spanish for yes. Yeah, and we were just talking about that and how crazy it is. And I was saying how important this podcast is because now you can learn all these terms and you can have these cool conversations with people, and you don't even have to go on tour to know what the hell is going on.
Just go talk shops and be like, oh yeah, I remember my last tour, and just use all the terms without actually.
Yeah, whenever I went down the rider for the local set carp. So
fish? Carp?
Another one is, bunks are private. Never violate someone's area. I had to learn that the hard way.
Bunks are the area you sleep in. They have a curtain. So I know this might not be like, you wouldn't know this unless you've been on a bus, but they have a thing that slides out. So when you're asleep, nobody can see in your bunk.
A good rule of thumb is to kind of like, when you're in that area where the bunks are, just be quiet, limit your movement, unless you know everyone's awake and everyone's off the bus. But usually it's pretty dark in there. It's meant to, sleep. It's meant to have your quiet alone time to recharge your batteries and kind of escape the busy, hectic world of touring. It's a good area. Like, you just don't violate people's privacy in that space. There's like the one space that people get, and you will appreciate that because when you have had a long day of work, you've been awake for 20 hours, you've done it for 3 days in a row. Sometimes you just want to be fucking left alone. You want to sleep.
Wait, how'd you learn the hard way? Is this a story involving me, or is this another story?
Yeah, maybe. I think I got in your bunk one time.
Well, like,
I don't know.
I mean, it honestly became more important the older we got because I think touring just became more and more difficult. Is like, you miss having, you get used to having some time alone, and it gets hard. You need your time alone to really be able to be your 150% the rest of the, times of the day.
I think for me, it was like, I just was so used to like the people that I was touring with were like my closest friends. And it was so cool to like, oh, we're on tour. We can like totally like prank each other like Blink-182 used to do, you know, whatever, and all this stuff. And then like you're saying, as you get a little bit older and you start having crew members out there with you and you're sharing this space with people that are not like your super close friends that share the same sense of humor as you and know you mean well when sometimes it could be questionable. Yeah, I had to learn, you know, someone had to be like, yo, fucking stop. Leave me alone, bro.
Well, there was that one time we messed with our old tech when we were doing that first Euro tour and like threw stuff in his bunk and jumped in his bunk in indecent ways. And he wanted to beat me up. And Neil had to tell him he can't beat me up. But that was like, we pushed. Well, that was like, I mean, 10 years ago now, which I know isn't that long in some people's timeline. But when you're talking my timeline of 20 years old, first time in Europe, it's like crazy. We were on some highs, you know, like just stoked over there.
Yeah, I mean, that was what we were playing some of the biggest festivals and playing to some of the biggest crowds and turnouts. You were getting some of the, I'm assuming some of the coolest photos that you had up to that point, getting access to certain stages and meeting certain artists and stuff. So we were all kind of like riding this high of like, yo, we can do whatever the fuck we want all the time, whenever we want.
The logical thing to do is to harass people in their bunk, obviously.
Yeah.
That is the next step. No, but really, be respectful of people's areas. If you need to contact somebody while they're in their bunk, send them a text, see if they're awake. They might be just chilling in there. So, but you never really want to go in somebody's bunk, and you never want to take anything out of it, mess anything around. People are very, you have to respect other people's areas, spaces, and their stuff.
Absolutely.
And I like what you said. The bunk area is a quiet area.
It is. And that wasn't something that I really understood before I like lived that way for a while. And sometimes it won't be, when everyone's on there and they're like about to go to sleep. I know in a Day to Remember world, like that's when we like tell stories or like mess with, like we'll like all hang out of our bunks and like talk to each other. And like that's completely fine, but even still, the tour manager's probably trying to sleep and you should probably not do that.
We had that one time where we got this remote control airplane. It wasn't a drone. No, it was a helicopter. And we were flying it in the bunk area. And the bunk area is very narrow. And it would just basically go in somebody's bunk and chop them up. And I don't know why we kept doing that, but we would just keep flying it around. Do you remember that?
Yeah. I also remember the gauntlet.
Where you run through it?
Yeah. So you start in the front lounge and you have to try to make it to the back lounge, but everyone in their bunk just like punching and kicking out of their bunk as you try to run by. And if you can make it through unscathed, then you win the gauntlet. But
also there's bus battles.
Oh yeah, bus battle, clearly.
But I do remember bus battles with you guys, and we would throw silverware and DVDs and anything you found on the bus, front lounge, back lounge.
No, okay.
I have video.
David threw the silverware first. That's all I'm going to say. David brought out the silverware. We said it was a bad idea, and he did it. And I said, don't do that. And he did it. And it ended up with David probably needing stitches. I don't know how or why, but just,
I have a scar on my head from a microwave.
You did.
Yeah, I do.
You ran into the fucking door of the microwave.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay. Another thing, Europe is kind of crazy to tour in, and you start to lose your mind a little bit. So make sure to take self-care is super important, and take your alone time. Take your time to recharge because it can happen. Come on quickly. You also don't want to interrupt anybody else's self-care time. So be courteous.
The bus is going to be cold. You're going to have to warm yourself up. You can't switch the temperature of the bus. And it's
just think about you're not going to touch the air levels at your dad's house because he will fucking, no, do not touch that. It's the same thing. It's like they got to be set at a certain level for a reason. Keep germs low. It's a bunch of people in a small confined space. We all really understand this because of COVID. The lower the temperature, the less likely the germ can really thrive, populate.
Habitate.
Yeah. You got to make it, just keep it cool on the bus. It keeps the odor down. It keeps sleeping easier. You can always cover up, but you can't uncover,
Being cold is the least of your worries on the bus. If that's all you've got, if that's your biggest problem is that you're cold, put a blanket on and count your blessings because it's better than, somebody making the bus smell bad. Or I guess that leads to our next point is you need to be aware of all the noises you create, the smells you create, and how you look.
Yeah, just be courteous, and watch out for others as you would hope someone would watch out for you. And most of the time that makes sense, except for you few psychopaths out there. I know you're out there because I'm one of them. And I had to learn these things the hard way. No one wants to smell your fart. No one wants to smell your stinky breath. No one wants to hear your phone on some Snapchat story that they don't even know the person. It's like, come on.
Put some headphones in, wear some deodorant, and freaking make your bed when you wake up in the morning. Do those things
I never make my bed. You don't have to make your bed if you don't want to.
Okay, don't make your bed. Make Neil's bed.
Yeah, someone's got to. I'm not doing it.
I do like when you tour with a bus driver who comes in and makes your bed.
I mean, it is badass, but it's like, I mean, if you're just going to get back in it like 2 hours later and it's pitch fucking black in there, no one even knows if it's made or not.
Yeah, fair.
I could be like, yeah, I make my bed every day and no one would know because it's darker than shit in there.
Yeah, there is no sunlight. Okay, now we've talked about how to live on the bus. Let's talk about living in the venue. And obviously, noises, smells, how you look, everything organized, that all applies. But first off, keep your personal stuff in your dressing room if you need it. And if you're, it just depends on your job. Every job's going to have a different area that they can kind of keep their stuff. The tour manager gets an office, production manager gets an office, photographer has to make an office usually.
Where you got to get in where you fit in with that. You know what I mean? It's like you got a table open. You're like, I need that table, at least this little part of it. It's everyone's trying to do that. And I think that's why it's so important to keep your personal stuff in a place that is, a lot of times when you first walk into a venue, you can set up where your personal space is going to be. Let's say you're sharing a crew room with a bunch of other backline tech people. You just set your backpack in a spot and no one's going to mess with your stuff. You don't mess with their stuff. You keep it organized and in a little spot, it'll stay there.
And keep in mind, every area backstage is theoretically protected by security. So nobody's going to be coming in your room. Everything backstage is usually a safe area. There's exceptions. Use your judgment. Sometimes venues are pretty trash and you might not want to keep anything in your venue. I've had people almost steal my gear and it was terrible.
Yeah.
I've had people steal my gear successfully and it sucked.
Yeah, and in those situations, you can always just keep it in whatever you're traveling in. And a lot of times in those situations, you probably won't be hanging out in the venue that much anyways. You'll probably be spending a lot of your time either on in the bus, in the van, whatever, not in those disgusting or unsecure areas.
Yeah, and being a photographer, I like to make sure my stuff's going to be safe. I know a lot of people have laptops these days, but always think about where you're putting your stuff and what people will put above it and what could potentially be knocked over off this place above it. And maybe your area will become a different area later in the day. Like maybe right now this is an empty part of the crew room, but later in the day, that's where they're going to put catering or the after show food. So just be aware that just because something isn't in use now, it might be in use later. So really try to think about, okay, this is where I'm putting my stuff. And have a thought process behind it. Don't just throw it wherever.
And again, you have to remember the rule that Adam brought up earlier. Think about what if everyone did that? Like, what if everyone did the thing that you're thinking about doing? And does it still make sense to do it? Because a lot of times that will be pretty self-explanatory if you should be doing it at all.
Rad. Okay, Neil, an important one. Showering rules.
Oh, I love showering. Just kidding. I hate it.
What?
I mean, I like showering because I like to feel clean, but I also have really bad FOMO. It started when I was younger, whenever my parents are watching really cool TV shows and I didn't want to go take a shower. And now as an adult, I'm afraid that the coolest thing's going to happen right when I get in the shower. So I'm always the last person to shower.
Yeah, you're everybody stop doing things. I'm showering.
Yeah. Don't have any fun while I'm in there because if you do, I'm going to be sad.
When does the band shower usually?
They shower first. So,
well, first when?
Okay, so when you walk off stage, that's usually when the band will shower. They have first dibs on whatever shower in their room or shared shower space. The band will get use of that first. And then from there, it breaks off into different categories of crew members, based on what they get done with first, I'm assuming.
Yeah, crew members will kind of shower after the band in their own whatever order, but sometimes crew showers in the morning too, unless I'm wrong there. I know like PAs do in the morning.
Yeah, and that kind of makes sense, you're first one in the room. No one is awake yet. You can kind of go in and use the space and kind of get your stuff out of there before anyone even knows any different,
Yeah. Basically, the goal here is to shower without impeding on somebody else's schedule. So band has to shower after the set because they're all sweaty. That is when they shower. That is when it makes the most sense. So don't use the showers right then. You should probably shower after you're done working because that is when you're done working and you want to get all the sweat off from the day.
You're not going to shower and then go do loadout.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make any sense, so you would probably wait until you're completely finished, take a shower. And then that just happens to be at the end of the show, when everything's done, crew goes in and takes a shower. A lot of times the final people in there showering is backline tech, stuff like that, photographers or me, because I'm so scared of missing out on everything. And I'll just wait till even the crew's done. And then I'm like, everyone's asleep. I'll never miss anything.
Yeah. I shower in the morning before anybody's up, but I also don't sweat.
You
much.
don't, which is so weird. You wear the same, Adam will bring us one backpack and wear the same clothes for the whole tour. And it's still clean. He still smells good the whole time. I mean, when you're touring, you get close enough to people, if they stink, and Adam doesn't ever.
Thanks, man.
I smell you a lot.
Hey, that makes sense. We sleep next to each other.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, respect is a very big deal on tour. You'll kind of see that. I mean, I think most of these rules could be broken down into one rule that's like, hey, you just got to respect other people. Neil, important question. Shower shoes, no shower shoes. What's your vibe?
I'm trying to build up, my feet immunity. So I go no shower shoes. No shower shoes, flat foot shower.
What's flat foot? Are you talking about your feet?
Yeah, I'm just like fully footed showering.
Oh, as opposed to being on your tiptoes or something? Or
Yeah, Alex, our drummer of A Day to Remember, he will shower shoes and be on his tiptoes. Like, he fucking hates that shit.
I have never heard of somebody showering on their tiptoes in my life.
Wait till we get him as a guest on here. It's going to be a whole topic on the conversation. So, Alex, why are you on your tippy toes?
Yo, I will tell you, I don't think Alex is ever going to get on here only because of this, Neil. I wanted to start a new part of the podcast where I had a random band person come on and say like a glossary term. And I was like, okay, we'll start with Alex. We'll have him do like bus call because it'd be funny for him to be like bus call, the thing I'm never on time for, or something like that.
He's always on time, though.
I know, but make fun of yourself. I asked him 5 days in a row to do it. And he's like, nah, man, okay, I'll get it to you. I'll get it. He never got it to me ever.
Yeah, but I will say this. Alex did his own podcast. He did it for a little bit. And then he was on a couple other, like he was on the Holy Ghost Notes podcast with Matt Greiner, and he does them, and I think that if we had him on as a guest and it was like more of a thing like, hey, we're going to be here at this time and then we're going to record it, he'd probably come on.
Maybe we can get him on the Q&A episode or something.
Yeah, like, why do you stay on your tippy toes? I'm going to submit this question and we have to have him on as a guest to get it answered.
We can phone him in, but what we should do, Neil, is we should call him and record his audio, but not tell him it's for the podcast.
I don't think we can do that legally, can we?
No, I mean, we can do it and then tell him afterwards.
Not that that's ever stopped me from doing anything in my life other than like,
It depends what state you live in. There's single party and dual party states that both parties need to be aware, one party needs to be aware.
If we know he's recording, he doesn't need to know.
Exactly. 2 people knew.
Hey, it's probably in Florida where that's like cool to go with, and
Florida's 0 party.
Florida's like
Florida man.
You don't need to do anything. Fucking, it's Florida. You can do whatever you feel like. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I almost said the F word 4 times there, and I stopped myself because I'm trying to be a human being that has a child.
Nice. Okay. Wi-Fi. There's not too many rules with the Wi-Fi, but basically don't hog it. Don't torrent and download stuff all day so nobody else can use the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, don't be a dick. Don't steal the Wi-Fi. It's just really that simple. I mean, like, if you're going to play fucking World of Warcraft and like run like fucking Call of Duty and download 17 movies, do that in your hotel room on the off day.
If you're a photographer or videographer and you need to upload a bunch of stuff, do it in the morning before anybody wakes up.
Good call.
You're never doing it in Europe.
If you're a guitar tech, you don't need to upload shit. Don't be on there. Just kidding. I don't know. Do whatever you want.
Yeah, so we've gone over living together, now working together. On tour, everybody kind of works as one big organism, one entity. They're really a team. And everybody's under the understanding that, okay, we're all going to do our job. We're going to do the best we can. And when we finish our job, we're going to kind of go look out for other people that might need some help or might need to be taught something or maybe could use an extra hand, because everybody has the same goal, right? To get the show to be awesome and to flow and to work well. So
it also kind of helps, it's like that golden rule, like do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and maybe one day you have a little bit extra time and you can help somebody, and then something happens, kind of an emergency the next day, and you need somebody to help you. They're going to be the first person that's right there being like, yeah, this guy's good. He has the team in mind. And everyone is like, if everyone is double checking, triple checking, going behind themselves, doing these things, working as a team, it makes everything run way more smooth.
So the goal of tour is to basically dummy check or double, triple check everything, like Neil was saying, to make sure that when the live show happens, you've done everything in your power to guarantee a flawless show, at least to the best of your ability, because stuff goes wrong and you don't want it to be your fault. You want it to be something like, all right, I triple checked that and it still went wrong, and then you work on improving it. But you're working together, kind of make sure that everybody is able to do this, and everywhere is a work area. Everybody's working, and keep in mind that these little things make a difference and really stick out. So if somebody you're working with needs some help and you help them out, they will notice that. And you're not doing that so that they notice that, you're doing it to help them. But these people you're on tour with, they are your people who will help you get hired in the future, right? If, the backline tech you're working with gets another tour and they're like, hey, that tour says, hey, we need a monitor tech. They're like, oh, my friend Neil, who was on me in the last tour, was awesome. He would always help me out every day. Let's bring him on. People want those people who are working hard, always out there to help each other, and just, constantly trying to do their best.
You got to also keep in mind when you're on tour, everywhere is a work area. You have to be aware of where you are at all times, and you have to make sure that you're not in somebody else's way. You need to be making everything run more efficiently instead of kind of slowing others down by kind of being in the way or not thinking about where you're leaving things. Like maybe you left your case open and it's in a spot it shouldn't be, and you just got to be conscious of those things. You're all working together to make this thing happen as smoothly as possibly.
Yeah, like we said earlier, organization is key. That definitely carries over into working together. So like Neil said, dead cases, don't leave them around. You know, what if everybody did that? The place would just look like a mess. You have to take care of your shit.
Also, possibly after smoothly is not a good combination of words, so don't listen to that. But you know, the message is
After
there.
what?
I said as smoothly as possibly, and that's not true.
That's not a sentence?
I don't think so. Probably not. I mean, maybe. You know that you get the idea.
Yeah, I would say that if I could sum up touring and what your job is during the day, 20% of your job is doing the job, and then you pretty much spend the rest of the day guaranteeing that everything you have done isn't going to break and fixing things that may have broken or double checking, triple checking, dummy proofing. You just want to guarantee, like, it's a live show. Stuff gets old, stuff gets kicked around, stuff falls. You have to just do everything in your power to make sure it all works. And we might have been pretty redundant here.
As an artist, though, you are trying your best to put on the best show for the people that came and paid money to see this experience. The last thing you want is the show to be messed up by something that is out of your control. So you're trying your best to play or perform or whatever it is that you're doing in that event. And to have something messed up by somebody else that's working for you, it just makes it that much worse. So everyone is human, obviously, but to do what you can to avoid those things is crucial. Mistakes happen, you know, doesn't have to be a bigger deal than it is. It just has to be how you handle it. That's really the most important thing. And what do you think would be the best way for someone to handle making mistakes, Adam?
Kind of like I just did. Did you see that switcheroo?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, when you make a mistake, it's not like, hey, you did something bad. It's, okay, hey, you did something that you could now do better, right? So don't worry about, hey, I made this mistake and I did this thing that was wrong. It's the end of the world. Just acknowledge it, fix it as fast as you can, and then address it with whoever it affected at the next appropriate moment. And we always, I don't know, we talked about this before the podcast, Neil. As a musician, you don't want to talk about the mistake right after it happens all the time because, you know, maybe the mistake was pretty bad and it made you upset and your emotions are going through you and you want to take a little bit of time to, I don't know, let it happen and talk about it later.
Yeah, because like that's the one thing that I don't want to do is like berate someone or make someone feel bad or say something that I'll regret because I'm heated or I'm in the moment. And if there's a little bit of time in between when something happens and you talk to the person, it kind of gives everything a chance to cool down. It really makes a huge difference. It's just really important. It really is. And I can't even say like, let's say my guitar tech comes to me and we fuck up a huge part of the show. Everyone in the band is mad at me for messing up. I'm mad at you because you're the guitar tech. You knew you messed up. If you came and talked to me right after and everyone in the band is in there, I'm going to throw you under the bus. And then the entire band is going to fucking talk shit to you and be upset with you and you just don't want that. You want to avoid those situations as much as possible. Put a little bit of time between talking about the mistake and it happening. You can avoid those awkward conversations. You can avoid those interactions. You can avoid people overreacting and maybe firing you at the worst possible case scenario. It really makes a difference if you give it a little bit of time.
You're not going to like literally throw them under your bus, right?
Depends.
Oh, okay, cool. Too casual. That was so casual, it's scary. But what Neil's saying too, you're going to have to learn a musician. Everyone's going to be unique, going to be different. And this applies to pretty much every job, whether you're production manager, tour manager, lighting director, monitors. Everybody has things that go wrong. They always happen on tour. It's all about how you handle it. And you want to find the best time. An example or an extreme example of a bad time was like, hey, let's say catering was wrong that night for dinner. Band's upset. The worst time to go and address it would be right before they go on stage because now you've made another mistake. Now you've kind of messed with their head right before they have to go on stage to put on a good show. So you want to address these things at the appropriate time. And you'll kind of be able to figure that out, read the room when you're on tour and know when it makes sense. And then this is my own personal opinion, but when I'm touring, something I'm very strict about is that I don't really drink or smoke or do anything that impairs my ability to do my best. Because when I make a mistake, I want my boss and the people I work with to know that I was doing my best. I did everything in my power. I double, triple checked everything. And then this still happened and it's my fault. I don't want it to be something else's fault that I could simply, just not do. So I think that's something that I've seen it happen where crew, especially earlier on in our career, would be maybe smoking too much or starting to drink too early or something. And they would make a mistake. And it's like, well, that dude was high or something. Of course he made the mistake. You don't want to be that guy. Don't do that stuff. So right place, right time for everything, and kind of take it seriously, because like Neil said, they're not going to tell you how to do better. They're just going to look at what you do. And if you do such a bad job, you're probably just going to get fired.
And if you want to avoid that, just take the steps and do what we say now. Listen to our podcast. Basically, what we're saying is join the Patreon. For $1.82 a month, you can be
God damn it.
All right. No, but for real, it's all tough. And again, there's no perfect way to be. There's always the right time to do those things. You can be social, you can drink, you can smoke, you can do whatever, as long as the tour is permitting that, as long as it's not a dry tour, as long as it's not impeding somebody else's time on the tour.
Yeah. All right. On to free time. What is free time on tour? Does it exist? Well, most of the time it does not. I would say, like you said, Neil, the moment you wake up, the moment you go to bed, you're pretty much working.
Yeah.
I would say free time for tour managers and production assistants happens during the show. And then for the rest of crew, it's like usually maybe an hour right after sound check.
Yeah, BT.
Bunk time.
Yeah, bunk time.
Bunk time. Is that something your tour crew coined?
Probably. I mean, I think it's specifically Johnny Meyer,
We'll get him
guitar tech aficionado, ultimate hang of the century.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you got to get in where you fit in, It's not something that is guaranteed. And if you have a little space, take it, but make sure you have your phone on you and make sure that your ringer is on. The last thing you want is to sleep through something that's very important or be doing something and forget what time it is or whatever like that,
Neil, I forgot to say something.
What?
This is me admitting my mistake. I wanted to say an embarrassing mistake I made.
Oh, yeah. This is a long form podcast. Let's just fucking put it in there.
Okay. When I toured with you guys in Europe in 2011, whenever I'd go to shower, there'd always be a chair in there. And I was like, what's this chair for? And like you said earlier, I only bring one pair of clothes on tour, usually.
Yeah.
And the chair is where you're supposed to put your clothes when you take them off. Because when you put them on the floor, then they get all wet.
Oh, yeah, because every shower is just broken for some reason. I don't know why.
And I learned that one the hard way. But I've learned other mistakes I've made. Like that one only affects me. I just look stupid now with wet clothes. I have to get merch clothes or something. But I've done mistakes like left my lens on a speaker, like a bass speaker, and then the bass hits and then the lens falls off and it breaks. And I'm like, okay,
no.
that's my fault. I've done that. They happen. And I've done stuff that affects other people too. Like one time I unplugged guitarist's guitar on stage and I got this death stare. And I was like, dude, I'm sorry. I've never done it before. I mean, let's be honest. If anybody is going to do it, it's probably going to be me. I'm running around on stage. So I'm sorry. And he was like, dude, I understand. It's okay. Just suck.
It's unfortunate when there's situations like that because it's like they don't want to be mad at you because they understand what it's like to be in that scenario. But at the same time, they're like, shit, I want to be mad at something,
Give me something to punch.
Yeah, usually that's when I just turn and yell at my guitar tech. But he knows. He's like, oh, yeah, he's having a bad night. He's yelled at me a bunch. But that comes with knowing your artist, you got to learn your artist. And a lot of times how people express themselves, it's not what it seems like right off the bat. Maybe they're kind of taking something out from some other time out on this. And,
yeah,
that happens. So,
well, that leads us into our next thing. What if somebody is being a dick to you? You're like, I'm not being a dick, but somebody's being mean to you. What do you do? What are you going to do?
That's a perfect segue because you got to recognize that everyone has off days. But at the same time, don't let someone push you around. It's a balancing act. You got to find what works with working with other people and being a good person yourself.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard, and you'll definitely get some tough skin as you tour because there's so many people on tour, and some people communicate a little bit more direct than others. Some aren't as direct, and you're working with such a variety of personalities and types of people that you really have to flow with okay, this person's not in a good mood today. This person didn't sleep. This person's rig didn't work today, so they're pretty bummed out. You just have to kind of be very
cognizant. Well, you have to be aware of your surroundings. You have to keep an eye out, like you're saying, you have to realize, hey, Adam's rig didn't work today, and sometimes people can just be in their own world and they're not paying attention to what's happening around them to everybody else. And the more cognizant you are of your surroundings, the easier it'll be to do those things, to have that balance, to realize whenever, hey, Adam's having an off day, his camera lens broke whenever he shot it off the bass subwoofer, whenever we hit the bass drop. But at the same time, it's if you're just genuinely a good person looking to help others out, you can really avoid a lot of issues. If you are the person that is going out of your way to make that effort, it will go a long way.
Yeah. And on the flip side of that, if you see somebody's having a hard time, like without embarrassing them and calling them out, you can always offer to help or listen or what. Like everybody's out there alone. Like sometimes I remember one time I was shooting All Time Low, had this really big concert in London, and I was super stressed out. And it was before I really understood how bad my anxiety was. And it was to a point where like, I don't even remember shooting the show, but I guess I visually looked distressed. And afterwards, Ryan, the drummer, came up to me. He's like, "Hey man, are you all right? Like you look this way. Is there anything we can do?" Like, and I was like, well, I didn't even realize I was giving off that vibe. Thank you so much for talking to me. It really helps me out. Not all artists are going to be on that level, but maybe fellow crew members or people you see more regularly. For me, it's artists because I'm a photographer. I'm, with them a lot, but it'll be different for everyone depending on their work scenario.
But as long as you're learning and improving, you're going to be making mistakes. That's the best part of touring, is that you get to get better every single day. It happens on multiple levels, like both what you're doing and how you do it. I think as long as you're trying to get better, that's all you can do.
Yeah, like not only do you get to guitar tech every day, and not only do you get to do sound and learn how to be better at the thing you love, but you also get to be better at working with people and working with your artists and organizing your area. Like there's so many things that you just get to focus on and do every day, and that's all you have to do. So just focus on that. Take notes on what you can do to get better. I'm sure, Neil, you do this actually with the live show. Like every day, what do you do to make sure that like, okay, I did this wrong, this show? Like, how do you take notes, or what's your process?
Yeah, I mean, something has to make me feel like uncomfortable, and it's not like uncomfortable is a bad thing because it's how you deal with it, Just because I feel uncomfortable doesn't mean I let everyone else around me know I feel uncomfortable. I just take a mental note of that feeling. You can do this too, It's really important for people that kind of work on the stage, or if you are an artist, or if you're a drum tech or you're a guitar tech, it's important that you don't look like something is wrong, like you just make these mental notes. You don't want to freak everyone else out. You don't want to be that person that's like, oh shit, my guitar tech's freaking out over there.
That throwing their hands up in the air, like looking at stuff like it doesn't work, or reacting visibly. It's not a good vibe. It's not a good look.
It creates this energy, and it's infectious, and like, let's say I just saw my guitar tech freaking out. I kind of like start freaking out. I turn around and look at our drummer, Alex. He starts freaking out. His drum tech it's just like a chain reaction. And as much as this thing is a big organism, everything is affected by other things happening simultaneously.
Yeah.
It's just, I take these mental notes. I wait till an appropriate time, which is usually the next day, and I'll go talk to my guitar tech, and I'm like, hey, let's fix this about the set. Let's change this about this guitar. Let's do this, this, and this. Or if it's other people in the band, I wait till after the show and after everyone's kind of calmed down and relaxed from the show, and I'm like, let's fix this. Let's change this. Let's do this.
Yeah. And then as a photographer, I take notes on what I can shoot differently the next day, something I missed. I make a note, okay, this time on this song, be in this place and shoot that. And I talked to other crew members this week. And for example, somebody who has monitors or sound, what they do is they actually record the show every day, and they listen back to it the next day and find areas that they can improve on, or what didn't sound good. And every day they're kind of tweaking what they can do differently. I thought it was really, really interesting. One of the monitor people I talked to, so there's these things called talkback mics that you use in a live show. And a talkback mic is a microphone on stage that the performer can use to talk to the crew, but nobody else hears them. They just hear them in their ears. And he actually kept the audio tracks from talkback mics, even though he just keeps it for learning purposes. So when he listens back through the show, he can hear notes from the band being like, my guitar sounds messed up, and improve in that area. Then he deletes the notes. But I thought it was really cool that every day he's working on just being better at his job. He knows there's room for improvement. And I think that drive is really what it takes to be, a top level crew member.
Well, too, it's like you have to think about who you're working with. Like, people putting on these events are artists of anything, music, actual creating physical art, DJs who are musicians as well. It's like everyone is trying to continuously improve their craft. They see that you're not doing that too. It's like almost like, hey, I thought we were in this together. Every day I'm trying to get better. Like, that's a thing that should be reciprocated from everyone around them, or it's kind of noticed. It's like kind of like, that's a mental note. It's like, this person doesn't give a shit. And you never want to be that. You always want to be the person that's like, oh, that dude really cares. That dude is putting out his 150%. Because like Adam said, like, every little thing matters. Whenever someone needs someone for the next tour, that's where that 150% comes into play. It all matters.
Yeah, cool. Well, honestly, I think that pretty much sums it up. That's what we wanted to cover in regards to living together, working together, making mistakes, learning and improving. If you guys have any question on the show, always come find us on Patreon. If that's not your vibe, or maybe you don't have the money to do that right now, hit us up on the socials. We love teaching, learning from you, being a part of this community. So anything we can do to help you out, let us know.
We also like if you guys show that you're listening to this podcast. Like if you post about it, like we see that. We like reposting that shit. It's really cool for us.
Shout it from the tops of your bedrooms, wherever you're stuck right now.
Yeah, because it's COVID, so you better not be anywhere crazy, because you're going to be the reason we can't go back on tour. But
Inside dining room at a public restaurant without a mask. Don't do that.
It's just important. We love that shit. We love to see everyone listening and supporting the podcast. Like that's something that you can do. You don't have to pay any money at all, and it helps immensely.
Thank you. That's all we got. We got you. We got our community. Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. Thank you, Neil. I've been Adam. I'll always be Adam.
I've been Adam.
This is Neil. He'll always be Neil.
I am Neil.
Always have been. Always will be. Take us out, Kevin Scaff.
Conversation time.
All right. I have exciting things that I want to share with you, Neil.
I've been waiting for this the whole podcast. I am so
Cool.
excited to hear.
So I think my favorite part about doing this podcast so far has been how invested in it our touring friends that we both respect have kind of been and shown their support. And I know like moving down the line, they'll actually become listeners that listen because they can learn something from it. But right now they know most of this stuff. So most specifically, it's been my friend Jared, who you know, and Jordan, who you've toured with and know as well. Jared like popped into the Patreon last night and was like, yo, I've been touring for 15 years. I've known Adam for this long. Like, it's cool. We started touring together. We've known each other forever. He's gotten me some of my biggest gigs. And he just popped in and talked for like an hour with people about whatever. And I thought that was kind of cool.
No, and I think that that's kind of amazing. Jared he's like one of the stories that really sticks out in my head of like people that I knew at the smallest level.
Yeah.
And then randomly, like after years and years, I didn't really see him because he was touring in other worlds, like outside of rock. And yeah, and then all of a sudden he's just like, hey, yeah, I'm the tour manager for the biggest DJ in the world.
Yeah, he works for Cascade right now, but before that he was with Marshmello, and before that he was with Diplo, and that's how I got all my Diplo gigs. And I was like, Jesus, Jared.
Well, it's crazy. He's like, hey, do you want to come to this show? And I'm like, yeah, but like, why are you asking me? He's like, oh, I'm the tour manager. I take care of everything. I'm like, Jared? I'm like, this is amazing, dude. Like, you did it. Like, you did the thing. Like, you did what everyone kind of hopes in this touring world happens, you know, is you put in the hard work and it's there to pay back, you know?
Do you know how he started?
No.
Photographer.
He was a photographer?
Jared's a photographer. Met him back in the MySpace days. He used to actually assist for Jeremy Saffer, believe it or not. And that's his world. And he comes from that. Wow. And then he toured in vans for a long time. And he told me specifically, he hit me up. He's like, yeah, toured in vans, didn't make any money, just did it for free. And he'd have to do like 3-day drives home and in the freezing cold. And it's funny because I was like, yo, come on Discord. I'll just give you an invite. You don't need to sign up for a Patreon, obviously. I'll give you your own role. Come talk to some people. They'd love to hear from you. He's like, okay, Adam, I always trust you on new apps. And I was like, why do you trust me? What a thing to say. He's like, well, you won't remember this, but you introduced me to Uber. And I was like, yes.
I will say this, Adam, you are technologically advanced.
I don't know about that.
Well, in the sense that like, you know what's good about these new things, you know, like when it's like new camera technology, you're probably some of the first people that I know that I would like, if you're like, hey, this Sony DSLR, it's worth shooting on. I'd be like, okay, I'll check that out.
Thanks,
but
man.
If like Joe Schmo was like, oh dude, check out these fucking whatever, I'd be like, probably not gonna. You were the first person to tell me about Sony mirrorless cameras.
Yes, I'm glad.
Yeah.
But also Jordan, who's a mutual friend of ours well, they're both mutual friends, but Jordan is somebody we've toured with. He did merch for A Day to Remember. Both of these people hit me up and they're like, yeah, I'm just catching up on the podcast. And I'm like, you're listening to it? And they're like, yeah, I've listened to every episode. I feel like I'm hanging out with my friends. I was like, dude, all right, well, after this next season, you'll probably like this next season too, but season 3, we're just going to start interviewing people and talking with them and hanging out with them. And they're like, that sounds awesome. Well, and they just hit me up with feedback. And I don't know, it feels cool that these people that I've known, like I've toured with these people, so I'm close with them. them. But when you tour with somebody, you become like their best friend, and then you're best friends forever, but you talk like once a year. And it's cool that these people hit me up and now we're talking more because they're stoked on the podcast and they're helping me out, helping us
Well, it's
out.
also cool to have someone that like you respect as a peer, like listen to what advice we're giving and be like, I want to listen to what you guys have to say on these subjects. That to me is the ultimate compliment, especially coming from like people like Jared and Jordan who have done it. I mean, okay, so speaking of how Jared started, do you know how Jordan met us?
Yes, but only because I worked with his roommate because I was on the Victory Street team.
Double J.
Yes.
Yeah. So Jordan and Double J worked at Victory, like Adam was saying. Jordan was a merch guy I don't even think merch guy is a fair term. He was a merchandise manager for Fall Out Boy in their biggest early years.
Yeah.
He was successful enough as a merchandise manager to have his own place in Chicago. And he would let bands that came through Chicago stay with him, and that was like a really big deal. We were trying to get signed to Victory. We went and stayed with Double J because Double J was kind of the first person that was like our liaison with Victory. I guess you could call him our A&R, which is it's like artist relations. And Jordan was his roommate. And so we went and stayed with him. That's where we met Kevin. That's where Kevin was playing Cowboys from Hell on
In his underwear.
Guitar Hero.
Yes.
In his underwear.
From last episode.
Yeah, that's where Kevin was playing at Jordan's house. And so it's kind of crazy, and it kind of gives you an idea too of how small the touring world really is, because Kevin ultimately became the guitar player that we needed whenever our other guitar player quit. Kevin filled in that gap, and we met Kevin from being good people, hanging and touring, and he came as a recommendation from somebody else because he was good to be around. And then we met Jordan because we were like, hey, Jordan, you're successful enough at merch to own your own home. That's something we all hoped that one day we would be able to do. And he was doing it working for bands that were bigger than us. And so we were like, man, Jordan's the shit.
Yeah.
Jordan knows his stuff. I'm just going to be honest with you, and he was able to kind of do that. He was kind of living the dream to us. We were just this little band that was hoping to try and make money at the end of a tour, and he was able to buy a house. So it is possible. And Jordan is the success story that we hope all of you guys listening will one day be able to tell others when they ask you, this is why I got into touring, because it was what I loved. And then I was able to make a career out of it. And now I have a life doing it, and that's kind of that's what we hope to provide.
Yeah.
I don't know. I talk too much.
No, that's the point of this. This was cool. I like catching up on some other stuff that's related to our worlds, but not really related to the podcast that we can put. It's like the secret track.
Mary, my wife, is also a chef. We met on tour. She is a badass.
Neil, I will say 9 episodes, haven't seen Mary once. She exists. Neil's actually in Orlando.
I'm not making her up. I swear to God, we're married. And Mary's another one of those success stories where, she got into it because she loved cooking. It kind of led her to all these different places. Now she has an amazing husband who would do anything for her. And it's just cool. It's just cool what you can do with hard work, because if you love what you do, it doesn't really feel like that, right? I mean,
no, you're just playing. We're just playing for a living.
I would tour in a van for another 10 years just because I honestly love what it does for people, seeing like that interaction and like how it matters as much to the person you're playing for as it does to you playing. Like,
yeah,
I live for that. So
mutual appreciation. And on that note, thanks for your time, Neil and Connor.
And on that note, I have to go close up the restaurant.